The hidden risks of AI agents in crypto. In this video we break down what is really happening, why it matters, and what to watch next. If you are building, investing, or just trying to understand where crypto is heading, this is the shift you cannot afford to miss, because it is quietly rewriting who gets to participate in financial markets. Today we are diving deep into the hidden risks of AI agents in crypto. This is one of the most talked about shifts in crypto right now, and understanding it early puts you ahead of the noise. We cover the technology, the key players, and the real risks that most coverage ignores. By the end of this breakdown you should have a clear mental model of how this piece of the agent economy actually works, and where the genuine upside and the genuine danger really sits. Let us start with the core idea. Autonomy without accountability is dangerous. As AI agents control more on-chain capital, the risks multiply. When you look at the on-chain data, the shift is already visible. A growing share of transactions are now signed by programs rather than people, and that quietly changes how liquidity actually moves through the system. The institutions that used to own this layer are being bypassed by open protocols anyone can plug into. Underneath the hype, what is really being built is a new kind of financial plumbing that runs without a human in the loop. For builders, the mode is no longer the idea itself, it is execution quality, security, and the ability to keep an agent reliable under real market stress rather than in a controlled demo where nothing can go wrong. The teams that win will obsess over failure modes, not feature lists. An agent that quietly loses money at 3 a.m. is worse than no agent at all. This is not just theory anymore, we are seeing real capital, real users, and real infrastructure form around it. The pace of change here is brutal, and the projects that survive the next cycle will be the ones with actual utility rather than pure narrative. Keep that lens on as we move through the rest of this breakdown, because the gap between the pitch and the working software is exactly where the real opportunities and the real risks live. Here is where it gets interesting. Agents can be hacked, jailbroken via prompt injection, or manipulated by adversarial inputs, and they will execute malicious instructions without question. The interesting part is not the headline, it is the plumbing underneath. Autonomous systems only work if the underlying rails are cheap, fast, and composable enough to act on in real time, and most legacy finance simply was not built for that kind of responsiveness. That is why this wave is happening on-chain first, where every action is a cheap, programmable call. For users, the practical question is simple: does this thing actually do something useful without you babysitting it every 5 minutes? And can you see exactly what it is doing at any moment so you are never flying blind? Trust here is earned through visibility, not marketing. If you cannot explain what your agent did last night, you do not control it. This is not just theory anymore, we are seeing real capital, real users, and real infrastructure form around it. The pace of change here is brutal, and the projects that survive the next cycle will be the ones with actual utility rather than pure narrative. Keep that lens on as we move through the rest of this breakdown, because the gap between the pitch and the working software is exactly where the real opportunities and the real risks live. To understand the mechanics, we need to look closer. If an agent exploits a protocol or loses funds, who is liable? The developer who wrote the prompt, the user who deployed it, or the model provider? Most people still think of this as a future scenario, but the infrastructure is live today, running on public chains where anyone can audit exactly what an agent did, when it did it, and what it earned. That transparency is the real unlock, because it lets strangers trust software they have never met. It also exposes every mistake in the open, which is its own kind of accountability. For investors, the signal worth watching is retention and genuine usage rather than token price. A tool that people actually run every single day will outlast a token that pumps purely on narrative and then fades. Look for real on-chain activity, not screenshots of dashboards. The market is getting better at telling the two apart, and that separation will only get sharper. This is not just theory anymore, we are seeing real capital, real users, and real infrastructure form around it. The pace of change here is brutal, and the projects that survive the next cycle will be the ones with actual utility rather than pure narrative. Keep that lens on as we move through the rest of this breakdown, because the gap between the pitch and the working software is exactly where the real opportunities and the real risks live. The market implications are significant. Regulators are starting to examine autonomous on-chain actors. The SEC and FCA have both signaled interest in AI-driven market activity. What separates the serious projects from the noise is whether the agent can take a meaningful action without a human approving every single step, because that autonomy is the entire point, and anything less is just a chatbot with a wallet attached. The hard part is doing that safely, with guardrails that actually hold under pressure. Most demos skip that part, and most failures happen exactly there. For the broader market, the real risk is convergence. When thousands of agents react to the same signal at the same time, volatility compounds in ways human market makers have never had to price before. We have already seen flash moves that look machine-driven, and this only gets more pronounced. The upside is efficiency, the downside is feedback loops nobody can shut off quickly. This is not just theory anymore, we are seeing real capital, real users, and real infrastructure form around it. The pace of change here is brutal, and the projects that survive the next cycle will be the ones with actual utility rather than pure narrative. Keep that lens on as we move through the rest of this breakdown, because the gap between the pitch and the working software is exactly where the real opportunities and the real risks live. But we also have to talk about the downside. The best protection: transparent agent behavior logs, kill switches, and multi-sig oversight, not just hope that the model behaves. The reason this matters far beyond crypto is that agents are becoming financial actors in their own right, and financial actors eventually attract regulators, insurers, and the institutions that move real money at scale. Ignore the token charts for a second and look at the rails, because that is where the durable value is being laid down. The narrative will swing, but the infrastructure tends to stick. For regulators, the open question is accountability. When an autonomous actor loses funds or breaks a rule, the legal framework for who answers for it barely exists yet, and that gap will get tested sooner than people expect. Expect new categories of liability to be invented on the fly. Whoever writes those rules will shape how fast this whole sector is allowed to grow. This is not just theory anymore, we are seeing real capital, real users, and real infrastructure form around it. The pace of change here is brutal, and the projects that survive the next cycle will be the ones with actual utility rather than pure narrative. Keep that lens on as we move through the rest of this breakdown, because the gap between the pitch and the working software is exactly where the real opportunities and the real risks live. So that is where this piece of the agent economy stands right now. The agent economy is evolving faster than most people realize, and the window to understand the infrastructure, not just the hype, is open today. Follow for daily breakdowns of the bots, frameworks, and on-chain agents rewriting crypto. And if this breakdown helped you see the shift more clearly, a like and a subscribe keeps the channel growing and the next one landing in your feed.